This is HBR News number 376. Jordan Peterson is targeted for showing feelings. Trevor Noah leaves The Daily Show. We discuss the topics of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are enjoying your week so far, and that you are laughing at all of this absurdity so that you are not consumed by it. I am your host, Brian Martinez, and I'm joined by, as always, my lovely co-hosts, Mike J, Dr. Randamer and Hannah Wallen. We have a great show lined up for you guys today, so please be sure to continue the conversations both in the live chat as well as the comments section. On this week's HBR News Show, we have more Hose Mad of the Week. This week, we're going to be talking about some updates, we're going to be talking, I guess there are some small updates, but we're going to be discussing the interview that Jordan Peterson did on Piers Morgan's, uncensored podcast. I'm not really sure. It feels like there's a lot of that kind of stuff going around where people who used to appear on mainstream media, they're sort of trying to break out and do their own thing. And there were some interesting revelations, and I know that I brought up this story with Allison last week, but I also feel like I'd like to hear my news team give their opinions on this as well. So we're going to look at it, maybe dig a little bit deeper if we can. Trevor Noah, who you guys might know from The Daily Show, he was on The Daily Show for about 7 years. He is leaving The Daily Show, and I'm sure it will be a very tearful affair. Stacy Abrams, who is I believe she's a politician from Georgia, she has a very spicy take regarding the heartbeat bill, abortion, and the conspiracy that men are implementing to control women's bodies. All that and more on the news show. So, I hope you guys are ready, because it's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. So on this week's patron-only show, I have an article, but I also found another video clip. So if we have time, we'll do both. Otherwise, I'll do the video clip another time. So the article is about incels as well, because it seems like there's more and more articles about incels popping up. And isn't this a funny image? I thought that this was like a Handmaid's Tale thing, but apparently if it's about incels, this is supposed to be ominous. And the title is, I infiltrated incel forums and I've never been more scared. So we're going to find out how terrifying this dark underbelly of the internet is and what this author has to say. This is from metro.co.uk. It's funny because I think that the UK journalists are far more concerned with incels than American ones are these days. Probably because of the Sarah Everard thing, but okay, so this is the article, and then if we have time, there was another interview that I just watched. It was a short clip on Piers Morgan's channel again, but this time he spoke with Andrew Tate. And despite Piers Morgan's normally steamroller style of interview where he just tries to force you to apologize for misogyny, I don't think that Tate took the bait, as it were. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And maybe we could look at that in the patron show as well. Because it clearly, to me anyway, says that Tate is not as two-dimensional as he's made out to be. That's all I could say about that.
Just want to say one thing for this show about that article, that incel article, and it was interesting to me the picture they chose to use, because that's just a bunch of identical, faceless, equally portrayed, all have sort of a symbol of masculinity, but no humanity about them because there's no face. It's dark under the hood, and it's a sport jacket, right? It's a part of a sweatsuit.
It's a hoodie.
All right.
Yeah.
But it's a hoodie that has the like, you can get hoodies that look totally different from that. Those are usually made for jogging or engaging in some other team sport or some other like gym sport or something along those lines. And it's a stereotype, right? And the whole issue that leads to incels needing to get together and support each other in whatever way they can is the stereotyping that they face and the way that it is used to exclude them from the rest of society. And the people that do that to them are very often the ones that yell the loudest about diversity and inclusion. So it's diversity and inclusion, but not you guys. And you guys are a cookie cutter of each other in our minds. We've already stereotyped you. We've already decided you're dangerous thugs, and don't try to change our minds because we don't want to see you as human. And that's what the underlying problem is. But it's interesting because you can always tell from these types of articles what they think of the people they're talking about when they pick a picture like that.
Oh, they're not hiding it at all. And one of the things that they try to do is frame incels as white, like largely white. The truth is that incels are just proportionately non-white. So that, there's actually a lot of black and brown people in the incel community, but that's not convenient for them. So that's another reason why I think they use this kind of faceless imagery. But it is really weird though that they will do the same thing for women who are victims. Because again, like the Handmaid's Tale thing, all the women dress the same. Those hood things hide their face, and it's kind of similar in imagery. It's almost like they don't want to be seen as human, but instead like as literally as literally chattel. And I think that's also on purpose. It's all like artistic ways of dehumanizing, but depending on what the goal is, to either dehumanize incels by using this kind of imagery so that people who read about them have no sympathy for them, or you dehumanize women, which is intended to get people to be like, oh, we shouldn't do that to women. And that's not fair. They're human beings. So it is funny though, that it's like literally very similar imagery. So yeah, we'll be looking at this in the patron show. Anyway, if you would like to participate in our patron shows, either as a member of the audience or as a participant in the actual discussion, please consider becoming a badger by going to feedthebadger.com. $5 a month is the minimum, and it will get you into the Discord where you'll be able to essentially participate in the discussion, and hang out, do all the events and everything else. And then if you give it higher levels, you can even be in the panel itself and give us your 2 cents, because we're always open to hearing from our listeners about whatever. They might have an experience they want to share. They might have some data that they know about that maybe we don't know about. And we're always open to learning. So please consider supporting us at feedthebadger.com. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that we have been yeeted from the internet, go to badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com. That's where we archive all of our old content. And trust me, some of it is sort of timely relevant. So maybe, you might have like some difficulty finding the context depending on what we're talking about. But I think that in terms of how we discuss this stuff, we try to make it timeless. So if we talk about an event, we relate it to a broader concept so that the event doesn't, like, we don't get too caught up in the minutia of that, because in 5 years, 10 years, people might need to know about some of the broader concepts we're discussing, because this stuff, it repeats, it keeps coming back around, So anyway, with that said, let's get into the stories. So the first one I'm going to talk about, I don't have a write-up for it, but I think that we should check it out. So first, I got to share my browser with you guys, and I pray that this doesn't cause any crashes, because for whatever reason, sometimes that happens. And this is sorry, hold on. Piers Morgan, I guess he has his own show, and it's essentially called Piers Morgan Uncensored. I know that he used to be on like a BBC thing, and I guess he got canned or something. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, he basically he's basically on his own now. And one of his first guests was Jordan Peterson, I guess. And they were discussing, the usual stuff that Peterson is good for talking about. And the interview was like 45 minutes. Most of it was probably fine. I didn't watch it because I'm not a huge fan of Piers Morgan. I think that sometimes, and he says something
like literally nobody is. Like, it's impossible, physically impossible, to be a huge fan of Piers Morgan.
Yeah, right.
The first time I ever heard about him, he was like shitting on American gun owners, and he like made that his mission for several years.
Yeah, well,
yeah, Alex Jones really chewed him out over that one. It's
yeah,
infamous clip.
his takes, they're kind of weak sauce, but okay, he has been, I guess, like, I don't know, like sympathetic to Jordan Peterson and his work, which is nice because it means that he'll have him on. But there was this point in the interview where it's right towards the end, and he asks Peterson about his thoughts on some words that Olivia Wilde, who, in case you guys don't know, she's an actress and also director. She made the film, what's this new one? Don't Worry, Darling. And she had like some, not nice things to say about Peterson while promoting her own film. So let me go ahead.
I was going to say, whatever happened to the events and people's portrayed in this book or movie bear no relation to real life people. That's a blurb that people have to put in their fiction, just to make sure that nobody confuses any of these characters with real life people, just in case they get into any legal trouble. Apparently that doesn't exist anymore. You can just come right out and say, yeah, the villain in this movie is this real life guy. Fuck him.
Yeah, I guess you can. Although I think that, again, Wilde was being cautious. So she said, oh, it's based on, this like internet personality. And
I guess there's this movie, My Son Hunter. You've seen it, which is quite unambiguously about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. So yeah, if they're come on, man, if they're allowed to do that, and hopefully they are, and apparently they are, which I was surprised about when I first heard about it. I was like, "There's no way that's happening. Yeah. There's no way they can legally get away with that." But they can, and okay, if that's the times, then them's the times.
Yeah,
you can get away with that with any kind of expose on a politician or a politician's family, anybody that's famous in that particular way, as long as you have the evidence to back up that what you're portraying is at least, mostly close to the truth, and you state that the movie itself is a work of fiction. You've got this sort of double cushion of, well, they are really like this. We're not inaccurately portraying these people, but anything that maybe we've exaggerated or didn't really happen, well, it is a work of fiction.
Yeah. All right. So here's the video. I jumped near to the end, but I think because this is when it really sort of starts up. All right. And Piers Morgan is about to ask Peterson about the whole Olivia Wilde thing, and have a listen.
The pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. Incel being these weirdo loner men.
Fuck you, Piers.
He's already got that wrong, hasn't he?
Yeah, well,
Like-
yeah. So that's part of it right there, and you can see, and I'll go back and play it again. If you look at Peterson's face, you can see that he's disappointed in Piers's characterization of incels. And maybe, and this is like the thing about, maybe this is the thing about famous people. Maybe Piers thinks he's doing Peterson a favor by saying, "Oh, that's not you. You're not one of those guys. Those guys are losers. Those guys are pretty disgusting, right? You're not one of those guys." So isn't it kind of weird that she would make that comparison? And it's one of those things that almost makes someone like Peterson, I would think, want to associate with them, or even prefer to associate with them, than people like Piers. So
Piers Morgan does this all the time. He tries to act like he doesn't buy into the feminist narrative, and then he absolutely does.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. He just doesn't like it when the feminist narrative targets him.
Right. Well, yeah, for sure. Or and that's the reason why, by the way, I want to look at the Andrew Tate thing, because he's clearly pulling feminist shit in that conversation. So,
sane man.
I think
the pseudo.
Honestly, Piers just kind of says whatever he needs to say to generate buzz.
Yeah.
Perhaps. I mean, I think that in many ways he believes it. But maybe
he's gone back and forth so many times on things, and it's just like, do you really hold a sincere opinion in all of your body, my man?
Mm-hmm.
No, he's a fucking snake. He's as bad as anyone you've ever seen in the news.
All right, let's play the rest.
One of the few people that Jeremy Clarkson has punched, who I don't feel bad for.
Intellectual hero to the incel community. Incel being these weirdo loner men who are despicable in many ways. Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero to these people?
Sure. Why not? People have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. What a terrible thing to do that is.
That was great. That was so great. He didn't even dignify the mischaracterization with a response. He just rewrote it to something that is much more valid. And that's something that you don't see a whole lot of famous people doing and dealing with. That the people that everybody's out there pointing fingers at and demonizing are disaffected young men that are in the position they're in and think of everyone else the way that they think of everyone else, because people have been doing exactly that to them all of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad he's finally gone there, because in the past he seems to have said much the same thing about incels that he once said about MGTOWs, namely, you're the problem. If women don't like you on the whole, maybe you're the problem. Just like if you're a woman and men don't like you, you're the problem. And you can see why he'd say that, is in a balanced world, that would be the case. In a world where women and men are equally loved by one another, that would be the case. But that's not the world we live in. And Peterson knows that. That's what he keeps, crying about. The Western world has been captured by this cult of misandry, this almost religious ideology of misandry, in which people have taken the natural gynocentrism of human nature and ramped it up as high as they can take it. Anyone who watches television or reads the newspapers has been indoctrinated to hate men and sympathize with women. Anyone who's been to university has frankly been brainwashed to hate men and sympathize with women. So if you're a woman who can't find a man to love you, there really must be something seriously wrong with you under such conditions. But if you're a man and you can't seem to find a woman to love you, in all probability, you're an average man. It's remarkably difficult to find any woman or any man who doesn't instinctivly blame men for everything on the macro scale and the micro scale, and will blame you for everything. As and when the rubber hits the road. So it's no wonder that there's an outgrowth of men who love women and sympathize with women, but they can't find hide nor hair of a woman who even sees the average man as a human being, let alone loves them as a partner. And we call these men incels. And it would be nice if Peterson, well, it is nice that Peterson's acknowledged this divide, this, dare I say, inequality, rather than knee-jerking to this both sides shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think this debacle with "Don't Worry, Darling" has pushed him into a place where he can acknowledge it. And I'm not going to demand an apology, just like I didn't demand an apology for what he said about MGTOWs, though he gave that apology anyway. It's not about apologies. It's about taking stock of where we really are. We're in a world that worships women and religiously hates men. I know that sounds like a victim culture with men as the proposed victims, but seriously, this is what actually happens in reality when we're entrenched in a victim culture with women as the proposed victims. It's an uphill battle, I know, but the alternative is continuing to roll downhill, down the slippery slope, through the memory hole, and into complete destruction. Olivia Wilde is an evil cunt, okay? You don't have to give her a shred of the benefit of the doubt. Tackle it head on. She's punching down, and you know it. You won't help the situation by giving her the benefit of the doubt. Punch the fuck up, and don't apologize for anything. Stay on point. The high ground means nothing, Obi-Wan. If you have a spear, of significant length. Amen.
Yes.
And in light of all that, by the way, if you're a female listening and you're one of those chicks that is always whining, "Oh, where are all the good men gone?" and you can't find a guy to date, you're the problem. You are definitely and without a doubt the problem. It's just like you have all the advantages, you have all the choices. Men do love women, and as long as you are just on average kind, or at least not unkind, right? Just on average, gentle and not mean to people, not grouchy, not judgmental, not just average. You don't even have to be a 10. You only have to be a 5 in just about everything. And there will be a guy that'll be interested in you. There might even be several, right? Women who are 5s get pay pigs if they want them, if they want to live that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why the fuck somebody would want to live that lifestyle, but whatever. So if you're one of those chicks that's out there going, "Oh, I can't find it," no, yeah, you can. You're the problem. You're doing something. You're either such an awful person that men just can't bring themselves to get near you, or they see you as a threat because you've been a liar or a cheat or otherwise abusive, and they can tell, or you've got your standards so high that you're interested only in that like top 2% of guys that all the other women are fighting for, and you're the reason there are incels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they take themselves out of the dating pool with their incredible standards, and that is basically a self-inflated, like an overly inflated sense of self. And I don't know, I got to get back to the rest of this clip, but I believe that many young women today, they don't know like what good qualities they're supposed to be looking for in men, so they look for the wrong ones. They look for the money, they look for the status, they look for the fitness, the looks, and I think it makes them unhappy. And maybe they're just doing what they see around them, like with their girlfriends or in media or with their single mother and the decisions she makes. But I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that most women don't have the equipment to determine what a good man is, and that's because they themselves have not matured. They're basically like acting like children still. They haven't grown out of their early teenage years, and that's kind of like what they're going with. So I'm not, I have some sympathy, but that is, I think, the problem, because men, they can't tell women what their standards should be. All they do is look at what women are presenting as their standards, and then they try to live up to them. And that means that men are not going to make that better. But women would normally learn these things from their father and from their mother. And there's no fathers, so they're just like, oh, I want a guy with a big dick, you know? And of course, that doesn't mean he's a good man. That doesn't mean that he's loyal. That doesn't mean that he's a family person. You know, it just means this. And I think that this is, at least like, in my experience, you know, I think that that's the main problem. And because we can't have any opinions on what women do, you know, sexually or whatever, we just have to agree and let them. And they could, again, engage in like harmful behavior or even self-destructive behavior. So
there's another point I got to make on that too. Because there's some complaints in the chat. Well, Peterson said women are allowed to have those standards. You know, that's a total lack of backbone on his part. And it's well, no, women are allowed to have those standards. We're also allowed to eat a 5-pound tub of ice cream, you know, or a 5-gallon tub of ice cream or whatever. Doesn't mean it's a good idea, right? Doesn't mean it's healthy.
Yeah, we're
allowed. You can't tell people who they may or may not date, but you can give advice. You know, you're passing up a really good guy. You know, that's advice. That's not, you're not allowed to have standards. It's, hey, haven't you noticed, you know, that guy that you're friend zoning that does favors for you all the time might really like you and care about you. You might want to get to know him better. You might find that he's somebody that you would enjoy hanging around with. But people can't do that, you know, if we're not allowed to talk about women having flaws and making mistakes. We have to be able to talk about women having flaws and making mistakes. It's important, or both sexes will be miserable.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately.
Real quick,
oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm just gonna make a real quick point here. Just this is that exchange with Morgan highlights one of the things I love the most about Peterson. He's faced with this question that many people would shy away from answering. But because his core value structure is, and it's, you know, one of his 12 rules, tell the truth, or at least don't lie, even when it's framed in this absolutely abhorrent, ugly way, like, oh my god, these horrible, hideous, evil, hateful people consider you their king?
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, I guess I am.
Exactly.
And that's just something I've always appreciated about him.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to play more of this because we haven't gotten to the good part yet.
I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice.
It's making you emotional. Talk about that.
Well, God, you know, it's very difficult to understand how demoralized people are. And certainly many young men are in that category. And you get these casual insults, these incels. What does it mean? It's like, well, these men, they don't know how to make themselves attractive to women who are very picky, and good for them. Women, like, be picky. That's your gift, man. Demand high standards from your men. Fair enough. But all these men who are alienated, it's like they're lonesome and they don't know what to do, and everyone piles abuse on them.
When she said that, Olivia Wilde, it stung you, didn't it? I saw the
reaction. By
reaction.
that time, you know, that as far as critiques go, that was kind of low level. I mean, once I got painted as Red Skull, you know, magical super Nazi, that was kind of the end of the insults. There's no place past that. So
I just want to point out. Great. Yeah, I just want to point out that Peterson is making very clear, and I think Piers wants him to be insulted or angry or say something to Olivia Wilde or whatever. But he's not interested in that. He's interested in helping these men. He said, I thought we were supposed to care about the marginalized. And that's exactly what incels are. They're literally like probably the most marginalized group, and they also get the least amount of sympathy. Like from almost no one. And from the moment I heard about them, without knowing much about them, my first thought was, I know what these guys are going through. Because I've had friends that have, they've had like dry spells that have gone on for years. And I don't know, like, if there's a rule of thumb, before you become an incel, but like, in general, it doesn't really matter. It's basically like, yeah, there are men who are feeling lonely, they're feeling isolated, they're not just having trouble, like, with getting sex from women. In fact, that's not even the most important thing. They're having trouble forming connections with anyone.
Yeah.
And so, because if you have like a network of close friends, you can cope a bit better with the fact that you're lonely romantically. And so it's helpful. And in fact, if you have a network of close friends, it actually can improve your odds of meeting a potential romantic partner, because you are more like you're more social, and maybe you get out a bit more, and so you're more likely to meet someone. Whereas if you don't have any connections to people, and also take into consideration that we've just had 2 or 3 years of COVID, which is essentially like isolated everyone, and it's probably harmed a lot of people's ability to be social. So that probably makes that a lot harder, especially if you're a young guy, like you're a teenager or something. So, this is like this stuff. It's not hard, but like, because it's about lonely men, we're struggling to see this in a objective and yet sympathetic way, unless it's like us on this channel. I think that we're pretty aware and try to be considerate, or Peterson, or like a few other people. And as far as like the thing about women being picky, I mean, I agree with Hannah. Look, I can't make women have different preferences, so they can choose to be as picky as they like, but some of them may find that it doesn't work out for them. Maybe their standards are too high and they're not finding anyone, because that does happen to a lot of women. They turn, they think they're hot shit, and then they're 35 with like 6 cats, and they're like, what happened? So,
and there's more to it than that too. When you hear high standards, like the term doesn't mean the same thing to everybody.
Sure.
Because you have a lot of women, when they say they have high standards, a guy could be a complete and utter dipshit, but make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And they think that meets a high standard because he makes a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Money is not a high standard. It's a materialistic standard. Sure. Very different, right? You could say that I have high standards. Like, I dated different guys. I dated guys with different personality types and all kinds of things. But when I was ready to get married, I married a man who was honest and kind and considerate and loving and wise and smarter than me. And not to brag, but it's not easy to find a guy that's smarter than me. All right, that wants to date me. And there were a lot of other characteristics. I could go on all day listing my husband's admirable characteristics. We are not rich, and I don't give a flying fuck that we're not rich. Like, we've been even more poor. Like, we're not poor now, but we have been. We've been poor enough that, like, I would agonize over whether or not to buy lunch at work when I worked at a convenience store, and lunch might be a bag of chips. And that's fine. Like, if I wanted more money, I would work harder. But that's, for me, my high standard is somebody I can trust, somebody I can look up to, someone I can feel good about introducing to people, because when they get to know him, they're going to like him. And somebody that if I meet somebody and they don't like him, I can't trust that person. Right? And I don't know very many women who understand the importance of those standards. Those are high standards, but they're not bad standards. And a man who meets those standards is going to be a happy man, as long as he holds the same kind of standards. He's going to want to be with somebody who is also kind and considerate, compassionate, trustworthy, and loving, and who he can introduce to people, and they're going to like her. Right? Men and women should keep those standards, and hold each other to those standards. So both sexes should have high standards, in my opinion, right, to what I consider to be high standards. But we've got our priorities all mixed up in society, so that we tell women that they're asking a man to meet a higher standard if he has to earn more than she does, if he has to support her financially instead of them being partners in the business relationship around maintaining their home and supporting their family. And we tell men that they're holding a woman to a high standard if they expect her to be pretty. But any dumb fuck can be pretty. Right? She can be pretty, and you can take her places and everybody will look at her, and then when you get home and she reads you the riot act because your underwear didn't make it to the hamper, or she takes her makeup off and her personality matches the face that's underneath and not the one she shows everybody, like, she's not meeting that high of a standard. So
Right, sure.
like when Peterson says high standards, because of the things that he has said about character, I doubt very much that he is talking about the kind of standards that a lot of women have today. I don't think he would think very highly of those standards. And I just, I think it's great that men have their Jordan Peterson. I think women need a Jordina Peterson to get women to understand you're miserable because you're acting stupid, right? And his daughter's probably going to do it. She may do it. I don't know.
No. I was joking. I said Jordina Peter daughter, not Peter son.
Peter daughter. But you never know. I mean, like, she's grew up with a dad who talks very, very well about character and probably has trained her to be of high character. Maybe she'll come out and talk about how women can be happier and have better relationships with men. But I mean, she doesn't have to. Like, she's her own person. She could go off and do something else. But women do need that person that can come out and say, look, be smarter and wiser about your choices, and you will be a happier person. You'll have more successful relationships, and you'll be more successful on the job. And here's how to do it. Here's the character that you need to demonstrate. Here are the things that you need to do. And a lot of it, they could probably take all of the advice that Jordan Peterson gives to men and act on that advice and be happier people. But a lot of people tell women they don't have to do that and shouldn't have to do that. And so very, very many women won't. And they'll wonder all of their lives why they are miserable.
Yeah. All right, let's play some more of this.
So when Olivia Wilde made those comments, the first thing I did was go look at the preview for a movie, which I quite liked. I thought I would go see that movie probably, and perhaps I will. It didn't really bother me. My family and I talked about it right away, and we were able to respond to it with some degree of humor, which then people completely misunderstood. I said I hope that, that if I had to be played by someone, he's a very good-looking man, and so that seems all right, And then I said something like, I hope he gets my fashion style choice right when he plays me. And it was a joke. All that was a joke.
I mean, you've been so controlled today, and yet in that brief moment, you got very emotional. Why?
It's really something to see constantly how many people are dying for lack of an encouraging word. And how easy it is to provide that if you're careful. You know, give credit where credit is due. And to say, you're a net force for good if you want to be.
Do you believe you're a net force for good?
Net, yes. In all the details, probably not.
Yeah, Piers made a big mistake there.
Yeah,
He didn't understand who Jordan Peterson was talking about.
No.
And like that face, the face that you saw when he teared up, that is the face of a man who loves his fellow human being. And his pain there isn't hurt feelings over how people talked about him.
Right.
His pain there is his response to seeing the human race that he loves have a huge segment of it that is injured because other people don't feel the same love for humanity and don't reach out to people that are different from themselves. And you know, Piers Morgan, not a good confusion to make there. Piers Morgan came out with this idea that these are weirdos, and he sort of did the thing that makes incels. He excluded them from society in one sentence, right?
Yep.
That's incredibly cruel and heartless and mean. And you know, I mean, people will make fun of you for saying stuff like that, right? Oh, you're so mean. Yeah, I mean, so what? Right? And they'll turn around, and there have been people that have said I'm mean for calling women who are cruel to men because they are men misandrists. But the fact is, it does hurt if you love all of humanity. It's very painful to watch an entire group of people, an entire demographic that spans every continent, every country, every neighborhood probably in the entire world. You get, you know, to the microcosm, you probably have someone on your street that is suffering in this manner. Everybody that's listening, one of your neighbors, somebody that you could probably see their house when you step out, or their apartment when you step out of your building.
Yeah.
And they're suffering that way because people disregard them at best and antagonize them or condemn them for existing at worst, and do so aggressively and sometimes violently. And when someone doesn't shield themselves from the hurt that it causes to recognize that that's happening to someone you love, and they hold great love for their fellow human being, and they don't separate people into groups that, well, we love this group and not that group, they're going to have that pain. And, you know, I really feel for this guy because he does not have that shielding. And I know what that's like to not have that shielding, because like mine can get pretty thin sometimes. And you know, having been a men's rights activist, you know, in the community for close to 10 years now, and having been involved with activities and cases and stuff like that prior to that, and seen stuff that indicated a disregarding of people's humanity in those areas as well. Like it tears at you. You get to a point where it makes you sick.
Yeah.
I have that when I have to go through story after story when I'm researching something to do with the dysfunctional prison system, for instance, or false allegations and their impact on people. And you read about somebody who, because of another person's mistake, not even a lie, just a mistake, ended up in prison for decades. And it rips your heart out. So I can understand why he cried. I think the people that don't understand why he cried, I don't think that it's because they have good shields. I think it's because they have lousy vision.
Yeah.
So they don't see what he sees, and they might not have the same love for their fellow human being that he has. So they'll be sad if somebody that's cute as a puppy gets hurt in front of them, but they won't feel bad for the way, say, the Elephant Man was treated. They won't feel bad for the guy down the street who just has a skin oil problem and his hair looks greasy all the time. The way people treat him, even though everything about him might be perfectly normal and ordinary, but he looks different, especially hours after a shower. And so they're going to make fun of him for crying. But honestly, that's probably one of the most admirable things that you could say about him, was that he was so torn up by the knowledge of the pain that is inflicted on incels by society and their own lack of direction, that he was brought to tears. That's something that you should look up to.
Yeah.
One of the things that really got me is you can tell just in that last little exchange right there. These two men, they're in the same room. They're occupying the same space. They are on totally different wavelengths, though.
Yeah.
It is so disconnected.
Not having the same conversation.
Not even in the same universe in terms of like levels of thought. Like Pierce is just trying to manufacture a cheap gotcha moment, totally concerned with just Peterson, the person, who he thinks is going to give him this answer. And he even says, oh, is that how you feel about this? How you feel about yourself? And Peterson here is this, again, absolutely struggling to hold just sympathy for the world on his shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And is doing an admirable job, but clearly showing the pain in his face. And it's just like, how could you just sit there and not get that?
Yeah.
I think that's the separation right there.
Yeah, it's revealing because, and this is the thing that I thought was really interesting about it. All through this part of the interview, I think that Piers, he reveals something about, not just about himself, but like, I think that the class of people that he typically deals with, because I think this is the case for many people in media and entertainment, etc., which I suppose are people that he probably deals with a lot. Now, Peterson is coming from a whole other world, but he's sort of like stepping into this one. And so everyone thinks that he's like them. All of these people think he's like them. And what I mean is that if there is a slight, Peterson experienced when, Olivia Wilde said that he is this like insane man, pseudo-intellectual that, is the king or the god of the incels or whatever, what she said. For people like Piers, that's like, wow, that's pretty insulting. I'm sure that Peterson is really upset that he was called this, and we're going to basically talk about it. And then he brings it up to him, and really Peterson doesn't care about what Olivia Wilde said. I mean, why would you? She doesn't, like, once you know who you are, people can't slap labels on you and hurt your feelings. And I think that he knows that. But more than that, he's like, whatever, I've already been called the Red Skull, so it doesn't get like any better than that. And then he goes, oh, but I mean, like, you're being associated with these loser men that are kind of despicable in their own right. And that's what bothers Peterson. It's Piers Morgan's lack of sympathy for the people that he is like, upset are being treated like this. Because like whatever rot is in our society, right, that's coming from, let's say, the incel community, there could be some of this, right? Like nihilistic, self-destructive behavior that may occasionally result in things like suicide, drug addiction, or even violence. That's a reality. There's no denying that. And it's a product of, like a growing rot of nihilism. And even if the only reason you wanted to do something about it was to essentially not allow people to get hurt, the only way you can do anything about it is to give these young men an encouraging word. Try to help them. Try to help them find purpose in their life. Try to help them, right? And Piers doesn't have any interest in that. And I think that it's all personal. So that's why he keeps going back to, well, did it bother you when she said that? I mean, you were on the verge of tears just now. And Peterson's like, no, I don't care about Olivia Wilde. These tears are for these men. And I just, people like Piers just don't get it. Because he's like, wait, aren't you supposed to be like essentially speaking on behalf of yourself to protect yourself? You have been criticized and you don't have anything to say about it? And he's like, no, I don't care. Who gives a shit? The woman's a moron. She's a cunt. Who cares? But like this other issue, and that's what I like about this, by the way, this other issue is far more important. And so I'm going to draw attention to that. And I think that was the better move. And I think that Piers is still trying to figure out what happened. Because he's one of those people that I think would get really upset if he felt personally slighted, even if there was like a broader thing that, could like make for a much more important, more impactful conversation. But he's so like focused on the self that he doesn't seem to take notice. So anyway, those are my thoughts on that. And good on you, Peterson. And unfortunately, for Piers Morgan, he just doesn't know like what happened. All right, so I got some super chats. I should probably check and see if I have super chat. I'll look at those after. But I definitely got no super chats. So we're going to move on to the next story.
We got a few things in the super chat channel.
Oh, okay. Let me go look at
They're all like tangentially related, so I would say.
All right.
Snap them up.
All right. So Tipper, are these today? Some of these
the first three are going to be from yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, I better just read them anyway. We didn't do any shows yesterday, but like people sent super chats anyway. This is the kind of the downside of super chats is that like I'll get messages that are completely zero context, like, Tipper gives us $25 and says, I listened to a bunch of recent episodes back to back. Here's some money as a thank you for your discussions and insights. Thank you, Tipper. Zapier gives us 15. Oh, that's anonymous, so I don't know who this is. Gives us $15 and says, RE, the politics on HBR News 375. In my opinion, the reason for the black pill is not the left or the normies, but the lack of organization, vision, and assumption of responsibility on my side. I've tried myself, Facebook, Mixlaw. I don't know what that means, but there's no one home to talk to. I keep telling myself I should stop. I don't know why I'm even writing this. Thank you for that super chat. I don't think I've ever said that the black pill is necessarily a political thing. I think that it's basically nihilism. So I think we might be on the same page there. HBR News number 375 comment gave us $5 with no comment. Michael Emmerich Winberg gave us $5 and says, funnily enough, incel means involuntarily celibate. What most people who use it as a slur do not realize is a gay man in the Middle East who is unable to have a relationship is an incel. However, we cannot acknowledge such a thing without upending the entire house of cards. Well, I think that most people who talk about incels don't understand incels. That's just the truth. Most people, because unless you can approach it with a lot of sympathy and a desire to not just like make a declarative statement about incels, but to invite people to talk to you about incels and about that condition. Most people don't know what they're talking about. It's actually, you can tell because most people don't have anything constructive to say. They just have judgment. And that's how you know they don't know what they're talking about. But thank you for the super chat. The Great Indoors gives us $5 and says, a bit of trivia. Christopher Hitchens used to babysit Olivia Wilde when she was a little girl. He also had a speech at his eulogy. This is a disappointing character arc. Well, I don't know what kind of person she was. I did like her in Tron Legacy, but I mean, she seems like she's either drank the Kool-Aid or she was always, kind of a piece of shit. Meredith G gives us $5 and says, Piers Morgan is a narcissist who can't muster the cognitive empathy to see an incel as human, interviewing a man, Peterson, who is capable of empathy, who sees the pain and humanity of the incel and wants better for them. Yeah, I guess that's a really simple way and very clear way of saying what I was thinking. So, sorry, I can be needlessly verbose, and I apologize. All right, so thank you guys for all of your super chow chat things. And now we're going to move on to the next story. It's really bad news, guys. Really bad news. Trevor Noah is leaving us.
Oh, no. Anyway.
He's dying?
I don't know. If you never see him again, is it basically the same thing as dying?
Do you want to know something kind of weird? For like a month, I thought Trevor Noah and The Weeknd were the same person.
Really? I thought doesn't The Weeknd look like he's like 80 years old? Like he's like really gray hair and shit.
He's been doing a lot of weird, like very Joaquin Phoenix-esque stunts where he's been like experimenting with like prosthesis and prosthetics.
Okay.
But like when he's not rocking all of that, looks kind of close.
I mean, maybe. I never looked it up. But that's an interesting take. All right, Mike, go ahead and tell us about Noah. What happened to him?
Well, apparently he built an ark and left The Daily Show. So 7 years at The Daily Show. After 7 years as host of The Daily Show, Trevor Noah is leaving. Noah took over hosting duties from Jon Stewart back in September of 2015. So yeah, basically 7 years pretty much on the dot. Noah addressed the audience for the episode last, saying, quote, I realized after 7 years my time is up, but in the most beautiful way. I've loved hosting the show. It's been one of my greatest challenges. It's been one of my greatest joys. We've laughed together. We've cried together. But after 7 years, I feel like it's time, End quote. Currently, there are no solid details as to when Noah's last show will actually be or who will be stepping in as host to fill that Trevor Noah-shaped hole in The Daily Show.
Probably no one, right? Probably no one can follow the trajectory where it's gone so far. They went from a funny Jewish guy to a painfully unfunny black guy. They're obviously working their way up the progressive stack and down the funny stack. So the next logical step is, I don't know, probably Corinne Jean-Pierre.
Amy Schumer.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
No, because she's.
I don't know. I don't watch this show, so
she's not diverse enough. It's got to be Corinne Jean-Pierre. Jen Psaki went to MSNBC. It makes sense for gay black Karen to go to The Daily Show. First, she'll need to convert to Islam and become disabled if we are to continue the trajectory to the top of the progressive stack. But fortunately, she's already where she needs to be in terms of the comedy prowess one would expect from the bottom of the comedy stack. You listen to Trevor Noah and you feel like curling up and dying slowly in a corner. You listen to Corinne Jean-Pierre for like 2 seconds and you actively feel like banging your head violently into a hangnail on a brick wall until the life completely drains from your body and you die twitching in the fetal position. For real, though, I would like to thank Trevor Noah. I would like to thank him for waking people up to what a crock of shit The Daily Show has always been. I used to watch The Daily Show back in its halcyon days of, I don't know, 2007 and whatnot. I actually fell for their grift, hook, line, and sinker. I thought they were talking sense. And it's because Jon Stewart was actually funny.
Yes.
At least funny enough to keep you interested. If he had stayed on as host, people might have kept watching and they'd have remained in the dark, in the blue pill swamp, thinking they still had the right idea about everything. We have Trevor Noah to thank for snapping us out of this delusion and realizing, oh, wait, they're talking absolute shite. They're constantly bitching about Fox News and completely ignoring what utter owl crap is being spewed by literally every network except Fox News. Trevor Noah was the reaper who ferried us to comedy purgatory, and it's thanks to him that we realized we were destined for comedy hell. That's where we've been as of about 2012. Some say the Mayans were right and that the apocalypse really did happen in 2012, and we've been wallowing in hellfire ever since. Thank you, Trevor Noah. You didn't show us the light, but you did the next best thing. You showed us the everlasting darkness in our future. Much appreciated. Now, fuck off forever, please. You race-baiting, charisma vacuum, diversity hire with rancid plums in your mouth. See you on the other side. Oh, wait, we're already there. Pardon me, I need another drink and then another.
I feel that pretty hard, the whole maybe we are in hell thing. I ponder that every now and then ever since 2012.
Remember some of Trevor Noah's hot takes on men, toxic masculinity, the Me Too movement? I mean, he was using
whatever anyone was talking about at the time.
Yeah, but
I was gonna say I honestly don't. I don't remember anything he ever did or said. I've never paid attention to this man. I recognize the face. I've seen the face in passing on television, and I recognize the name because people talk about him. But like, I don't know who he. I mean, I know he's this supposed comedian and host of the show.
Don't you know that funny
I know
joke
nothing
he
else
tells,
about
Hannah?
him. No,
that really funny joke that I couldn't name either.
He's just some guy that hosts a show that I never watched.
Well,
I didn't really even watch it when Jon Stewart hosted it. Yeah. And I didn't really know. I couldn't tell you damn thing about Jon Stewart except that he used to host a Daily Show, and the only reason I know that is because other people have said it. Like I miss the days. That's on Comedy Central, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. I miss the days when Comedy Central had comedy.
Well, it turned into basically like a propaganda arm of the.
I miss Evening at the Improv. Mm-hmm. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure that used to be on Comedy Central. I miss Evening at the Improv. I miss some of the other shows that were stand-up comedians. I miss Funny Movies on there. They're like, this stuff is just crap.
Well, of course.
Why would it? Like, I just don't pay attention to it. It's gone.
Have like full sets of comedians.
I wonder when you say he said farewell to his audience. I wonder if he had one.
He did, but they were
there.
Like,
they were there. They cut to them. He got a standing ovation, and you can cut to them, and you see they're all wearing masks still.
Oh, geez, Pete. I was gonna say, were they all people from other like television and media stuff? Were they all other entertainers?
Hard to say. Self-titled. Around any allegations.
Like that, I kind of wonder about that because I think that a lot of what goes on television today is just the audience for every television show is people involved in other television shows, and it's all just one big circle of Hollywood and television butt sniffing.
Sure.
And I mean, I'm sorry, but like, I can't bring myself to give a rat's ass about Trevor Noah.
I understand. I'm just making, I guess the point of this is that he, like Jon Stewart, was on the air for a long period of time, and the purpose of their shows was to propagandize. And
that makes sense.
Yeah, and people,
except it became even more transparent
when Trevor Noah took over. It was very transparent. Like, he stopped even like trying to cover it up, and because Trump,
I had to be told he was a comedian.
Yeah,
I remember listening to the man, and it was just his idea of delivering a joke is like this.
Yeah,
where he just sounds more and more perplexed as he gets to the punchline.
The joke is that he's so intelligent that he can't even understand why whatever it is he's commenting on is like at all respected by anyone. And of course, this helps his douchebag hipster audience feel just as intellectually superior as he does. And so they at least applaud, if not chuckle, alongside the joke, because that's the thing. Like, this is the absolute state of all of our comedy now. You're not trying to get a laugh out of the audience. You're trying to get their applause, because that's
you're getting virtue signaling. You agree with current
that's
things.
Just bad.
But it is bad. But
there's a reason why
it's sad. It's sad. It's pathetic.
Yeah, it is. But
there's a reason that we call them the late night comedy men with approved opinions.
Yeah, because they all basically say the same stuff. But like, I guess the reason why this is meaningful is he's leaving the show. Now, according to him, he's quitting. But what I think is really going on is no one's watching. Like, regular Americans are not watching. And so they don't want to hear this anymore. They have finally had enough. And the studio heads are like, you're going to have to quit. So what and they probably, pushed him to retire. And he did. And I think that, like, most of these, because there have been other things, and this is the thing, it's part of a larger pattern. Like, Samantha Bee's show is gone.
Mm-hmm.
James
Corden lost his show.
That's another one. I've seen her face and I've heard her name. I couldn't tell you jack shit about her other than that she's seems to be well loved only by the people that enjoy sniffing each other's asses.
Yeah, like
that's it.
Her voice sounds like a kazoo. She's that one.
The feminist lefty crowd.
I've never heard her speak. I've never heard her voice.
Good.
You're
happy.
Yeah, you're not missing out. So, but what I'm saying is that this is another victim in a line of these kinds of guys. And yeah, he'll probably like have his own podcast somewhere on the internet, because I noticed that that's another thing that's happening. But I don't think they can compete with alternative media. And
not even alternative media. You know who's coming around and just absolutely slaying now?
No.
Look at like Greg Gutfeld.
Oh yeah, that's right. I did read that his show has had some very impressive numbers
for like the past 6 weeks in a row. I think they've been like the #1 political comedy show on air, period. I could be fudging those numbers just a bit, but I remember they've been super duper impressive. They've been beating everyone. They've been beating Colbert. They've been beating Trevor Noah. They've been beating whatever else is out there. And it's like, it's one of those things my grandparents happen to watch that, like if I'm in the kitchen making dinner or something, or I'm going to and from, I might hear a bit of it, and like, none of it super makes me laugh, but it's like, at least they try to be telling jokes. At least they try to be being funny. Yes, there's a nakedly partisan element to it too. Of course, it's on Fox News. No shit.
Right, everything's going to be from a right-wing perspective.
Exactly. But it's at least mildly entertaining.
It's like that. It's like that gag, that running gag, where it's just like that running gag where any story that ever gets mentioned, any movie, any book, anything, people will say, still a better love story than Twilight, even if there's no love story in it. And when you get to when you get to the point where news commentators, because that's a news commentary show, like they do make it as funny and entertaining as they can, but it's still news commentary. When that's funnier than a show that their main goal is comedy and comedy alone, like that makes the attempt at comedy and the comedy show pathetic. If you're being beaten by a news commentator, you lost. You really lost.
Yeah. So I guess when I put in the wider context, what I'm basically saying is rejoice, because this is a sign that I think people are finally like really, really moving away from this garbage. And that's good, because this garbage is basically, it exists to like tell you how to vote and what you should believe. And Trevor Noah,
what all the other good thinking people believe.
Yeah. Also, as an aside, Jon Stewart has his own thing that he does, and it is
Super
absolute
woke.
Garbage. He's gone. I mean, I'm not even gonna say that he went woke, because I think that's how he was. It's just that it wasn't as, I don't know, like maybe he thinks it's more useful now than it was then.
Yeah, like if you think there was any pretext of sort of morality to him, watching his new show, like I think what was his first episode, he just went on this white people are the worst tangent for like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, this is not like, I never had a super high level of respect for him. Like when it was on, Daily Show, it was something to watch. I was young. I didn't know better. It made me laugh on occasion. I didn't really know much about politics, but like it was like at least he gave the appearance of taking the piss out of both sides.
Right.
And like I don't even recognize him now when he's on something.
He always relied on writers, which is why you can tell when they had that writers' strike, they were just flailing in the wind. They had no idea what to do. Because Jon Stewart, you can't write enough material for 4 shows every week. So he always relied on whatever his writers gave him, and I think it's still the case. But now the writers he employs are just super woke, and he tries to do it in the funny way that he used to do it on the Daily Show. But there's just nothing you can do with material that woke.
Yeah, and he almost inevitably like gets really angry, and I'm like, that's not what people want. But anyway, yeah. So I'm saying. The climate is a changing, and I don't even.
Noah's not going to be the last. More heads are going to roll.
More heads are going to roll, and I think that
metaphorically, of course,
people are going to be even more particular when it comes to right-wing content, because they're looking to be entertained, and they really hate being lied to. And so I think that like this is the thing, that people want, and the fact that again. Most of this content, like Trevor Noah's, but not exclusively, was really misandrous. And I think that there probably are a growing number of men who are like, I'm not supporting this crap anymore. I mean, men are getting so like ruthlessly criticized in our media and our entertainment industry that they're extremely sensitive to it. And I think that's a good thing. I think that they don't need to give people their time or money if they're going to treat them like shit. And I support that 100%. So R.I.P. Trevor Noah. I hope you grow up. All right. I got
one more poor point I will make about this, because this is my impression of the Comedy Network and pretty much all of the other networks that have that leaning. What's worse than being lied to is being lied to with condescension, and that is what they do. They don't just lie to you. Like they don't just try to be the sleazy salesman that sells you bullshit. They ridicule you for not believing that the bullshit is gold just because they said so and because the authorities are saying so. That's why people hate them.
Right. And they have like this, it's the smugness.
Right.
Oh my God.
How dare you not view our bullshit as gold, and how dare you not eat that up?
Yeah.
Put that all over you. It's gold, it's not bullshit. We want to just rub your nose in it, but we're not rubbing your nose in shit. It's gold.
Yeah.
How dare you?
It's this sort of
You moron.
to be part of the club that you
Yeah.
desperately. Well, I don't believe what this guy's going against because he just made the other side sound like a bunch of idiots.
Exactly.
I guess I have to support him.
Yeah, they spread
it's
this
just-
intellectual smugness like it's herpes. Like
If
that's
you're
that's
worried-
what they try to do.
If you're worried that it's going to rain because you don't want to drown, your nose is way too high in the air.
Mm-hmm. All right. I got some super chats. And then I think we'll move on to the next story. Zeranx gives us $5 and says, what's interesting is Trevor Noah's earlier comedy was good, or at least I thought so. When he adopted the progressive position, I stopped caring. Well, look, I never saw anything from his early work. I know that there's probably a reason why, Jon Stewart chose him to be his...
Everyone says like he was this huge name in South Africa, and I've never seen anything from there, so...
Yeah,
Granted,
so,
hey, maybe it was something.
I could look it up. I'm not expecting much, but thank you, Zeranx. Senior Sticks gives us $2 and says, maybe Trevor Noah may tell a joke on podcasting. Yeah, I would start with why did the chicken cross the road? Just like get your feet wet. Try something,
Because the chicken was a what man? Yes. Oh, it's so funny.
Okay, so thank you guys for the super chats, and now we're gonna move on to the next story. So, oh my God, this one is kind of crazy. So, a UK woman has been jailed after 60 investigations found her rape allegations to be lacking evidence. 60 investigations. Kathy Richardson from Westcliff made a series of allegations against 2 men between January and May of last year. Over that time, officers carried out 60 investigations, including arresting one of the men and making him subject to a forensic examination. However, CCTV phone data and information from automatic number plate reorganization cameras showed that the alleged attacker was not in the area at the time Richardson claimed the assaults took place. One of the men even had a GPS tracking tag fitted to his ankle by police, and data from the tag showed he was not in the area where the alleged attack happened. Richardson was arrested on May 28th of last year and charged with perverting the course of justice. She admitted 10 counts and was jailed for 5 years and 1 month starting last Friday. What about the other 50? From Echo News, Detective Inspector James Holmes, who led the investigation, said, quote, whenever an allegation of rape or sexual assault comes to us, our starting point is to believe the person making that claim.
Unless they're a man.
Yeah, there's your first mistake. They are awful offenses and have a massive impact on those who have experienced them. And we have specialist officers and staff who support them and investigate. To begin with, Kathy Richardson's claims were no different, and we carried out our inquiries with compassion and empathy. However, it quickly became clear that the allegations Richardson had made were not what they seemed. Her claims do a great disservice to actual victims of rape and sexual assault who need our help and support. And they have had a huge impact on the lives of the 2 men she has accused.
If it's only 2, we don't know the rest. And are we going to have a vigil for the victims of this woman's crimes against humanity? Would that seem appropriate? I mean, all right, they didn't die, but if they had gone to prison and therein been outed as a rapist, there's a good chance they would have died at someone's hand. In any case, their lives would be proverbially over. Can we have a vigil for all the men who weren't lucky enough to be exonerated by 60 investigations? 6, that's how many it took. Can we hold a vigil for the men who only got as far as 59 investigations, and that turned out to not be enough to bring justice? Can we hold a vigil for the men who didn't have the privilege of any police investigations and were just immediately banged up on nothing but the word of a lying cunt? No, we can't, because Well, not because those men don't exist, but because we don't know who they are or where they are, other than in various prisons or various graves. And even if we did, they would be too numerous for us to wrap our heads around the scale of the problem. The death of millions of men is just a statistic. But the death, meanwhile, one woman gets killed by a rogue police officer, and only because that rogue police officer's actions were facilitated by draconian lockdown policies, and everyone in the UK and beyond still remembers her name, though I won't mention it here. It was mentioned at the top of the show. You'll know who I'm talking about. Point is, if we held a vigil every time a man's life was lost or ruined by a woman's lies, we'd be doing it all day, every day. And if we did it in public, we'd probably get arrested for disturbing the peace anyway. You can support wars in foreign countries, you can support Marxist grifters, but if you support men who have been victimized by women, all it takes is one feminist to tell the police how upset they are, and wallop, you've committed a public order offense, and you'll be arrested, lockdown or no lockdown. So how about we just have someone out there in the dark back streets of the internet trying to pay tribute to men, innocent men, and the civil and human rights that they lack. Oh, wait, that's what we do here all day, every day. I'm sure that'll change something. Here's to another 10 years.
It's amazing how much compassion that society has for crime victims until they are victims of a crime committed by a woman, or a crime that is almost uniquely committed by women. And then all of a sudden, we don't think about them that way, right? So a lot of times when we start talking about false allegations, especially like if you're talking on social media, or you tweet, or you make a Facebook post, or you say something on Reddit, any place where it's all text, and you start talking about statistics on false allegations of intimate partner and sexual violence, not just rape, but all forms of family violence and sexual violence, you get this inundation of women, not even necessarily feminists, but like mostly there's some overlap there, like big overlap on the Venn diagram between women who do this and feminists who do this. But they'll come in and start talking about victims of the types of crime that the false accusers exploited to make their allegations, as if they are in any way relevant to the experiences of victims of false allegations. And they don't think of victims of false charges when someone makes their false allegation to the police, and the police file a charge, and the person gets cuffed against their will and thrown into a cage, interrogated, has to pay money to get out, and then gets judged by their fellow human being and potentially thrown back into the cage if they can't prove their innocence, even if they are innocent, right? They don't think of that person as a victim. That person is a crime victim. You could say that person is a victim of violent crime, because I can guarantee you, if I walked up to one of my neighbors and handcuffed them and threw them into a cage, you can bet I would be arrested for violent crimes, one of which would be kidnapping. The reality is that when we get a large group of women or a large group of feminists that includes male feminists that comes into those discussions about people who have suffered ordeals after being falsely accused, people who have lost their jobs, people whose family has been split over the allegation, people who have been arrested and thrown in jail and had to spend all kinds of money for an attorney, people who have actually been incarcerated. Like, those people suffer on a level that is very similar to the type of suffering you go through when recovering from a sex crime. Like everything the 7 years in hell guy went through. We've talked about our recovery, both of us, from like me from the types of violent crime that I've faced, some of which was sex crime and some of it wasn't, and him from his ordeal at the hands of his perpetrator. 7 years of repeated false allegations, repeated false arrest, repeated false incarceration, temporary but still incarceration, and it's almost identical. Right? There isn't anything that I've suffered even in terms of distrusting for a while the opposite sex entirely, which lasted until I faced a same-sex sexual perpetrator. And like all of the things that I've gone through, the nightmares, everything, he has too. There's not anything I can say that I experienced as a victim of sexual violence that my friend who was a victim of a false allegation didn't also go through. There are things that he experienced that I did not. And then in 2019, when I faced a very, very minor false allegation, the type you get charged with disorderly conduct for, not the type you get charged with a felony for, right? I went through a taste of that, tiny little bitty taste of that. And I realized why his recovery was so harsh. Like the level of powerlessness that you experience when your attacker is the state dwarfs the level of powerlessness you experience when your attacker is just bigger than you. It's even worse than when your attacker has a gun. Like all you have to be afraid of with a gun is that you're going to die and that it's going to hurt. You don't have to be afraid that you're going to have to live the rest of a potentially very long life with the consequences of a false arrest. Like it'll be over after a gun, right? And it's probably one of the reasons why so many people who face false allegations try to commit suicide. And I would bet if you looked at the percentage, the comparison maybe between people who have had difficulty recovering from intimate partner and sexual violence versus people who have faced false allegations, the suicide percentage is probably higher with the falsely accused. And they need more support, not less. They need more compassion, not less.
And this is how this is different from the argument that rape is worse than murder, which is what a lot of feminists will say. Well, being raped is worse than being murdered. But, not many rape victims go on to kill themselves.
No.
A lot of them go on to have serious issues which can be resolved. But victims of false rape allegations quite often go on to kill themselves. And maybe that's not as bad as straight up murder, but if they go on to murder themselves, if you could even call it that, then yes, it is comparable. And it's even worse because it's a slow death. And it's a death that ekes its way through your entire cognition, through your entire personality, until you feel so indescribably awful that you commit the murder yourself. So no,
that's the thing.
It's not the same as saying rape is worse than murder, because this is a death that's just as bad as an instantaneous murder, but maybe even worse.
Murder is something that somebody inflicts on you. But suicide is something that you do to try to escape something that is so bad you can't live with it. At least in the moment, that's what you feel like, right? And when I took a whole bottle of pills at the age of 13 because I didn't think that I could get away from my repeat attacker, I was, convinced that was going to be the rest of my life. That was something I couldn't live with because it wasn't something I was gonna escape, right? And if it hadn't been for Like when I threw up and it all came back up. That happened because, you know, I realized it didn't matter, you know, it didn't matter if I got away from it or not. You know, if I died, everybody that loved me was going to have to live with that for the rest of their lives. I was going to multiply it. Right? It wasn't bad enough for that. It wasn't bad enough for me to want my parents and my brother and my grandparents and all of my friends to remember me as the person that they couldn't reach. And so I stuck my fingers down my throat. And I had to stick them down pretty far. It's really bad. I almost failing at suicide because I'm a professional screw up, right? But if I'd been in a situation like my friend was in, I think I might have continued. I might have carried it out. I don't know if I could have faced everything that he faced. Especially, like, what if she found a moment where we had failed to document? Like, what if we had just a window, you know, an hour where nobody could say they knew where he was? That's all it would have taken. And he'd have been jailed. It wouldn't matter whether he did what he was accused of or not. We figured that out. Under the laws, he would have been in jail. So for 7 years, until we finally got through with the vexatious litigation civil suit, and she wasn't allowed to do that to him anymore, he lived with the fear of having to go to jail for the rest of his life, having his family's reputation destroyed, because she didn't just make domestic violence allegations, she made sexual violence allegations too, and she made allegations against extended family. It's one of those situations where if you haven't been in it or you haven't been close to it, you can't even comprehend what this man went through. And yeah, suicide probably would have looked a lot better to me in that moment. And I would have not had as much of a hesitation, because I would have thought, well, you know, the people around me would understand. They did the best they could. But I couldn't live with it, right? They would have understood. And the truth is that it would have hurt. They would have held it against her. We would have held it against her. But yeah, false allegations are worse than sexual violence. They're worse than murder.
All right. So let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Maybe you have a different opinion. So feel free to share your thoughts. And we're going to move on to the next story. We got 2 more to go. So let's talk about, well, this is kind of bad news. I mean, it is bad news. But, you know, these things happen. Coolio. Talk about Coolio briefly. So, Mike J, I'm going to hand you Mike. There.
The man. The myth. Dare I say the legend? Artis Leon Ivy Jr., better known as Coolio, has passed away at the age of 59. The legendary rapper behind such hits as Fantastic Voyage, Hit 'Em High, and most famously, a little song called Gangster's Paradise. Although I realized I forgot one huge one that was probably more influential to my my childhood. Aw, Here It Goes, better known as the theme song to Kenan and Kel on Nickelodeon.
Kenan and
Kenan and Kel. Yeah.
Oh.
Has everyone forgotten See You When You Get There? I know it was cheesy, but it was quite a big hit over here.
I don't know.
It was good, but like that song was like probably the first time I heard anything that could be called hip hop.
Yeah, Yeah.
And it was just one of those things that I remember in my childhood. Good part there.
You know, the odd thing I remember about him is because of Weird Al.
Yeah.
Weird
Oh,
Al
yeah.
Yankovic had his parody of Gangster's Paradise, and
Amish Paradise.
yeah, and there's a story about that where you know, he doesn't have to ask permission to parody somebody, but he always does, and I think he probably wouldn't have. But there was some sort of miscommunication, and I guess it was on the side of Weird Al's people, not Coolio's people. So it was communicated to Weird Al that Coolio was okay with it, but Coolio wasn't okay with it.
He didn't. Yeah, he really didn't like it.
And
initially,
you know, Weird Al
he
came
would
out
later go on to say
you know,
that the decision to refuse was stupid, and that he really did like the finished product.
And it was a good finished product. And I think actually there are probably people who never would have heard Gangsta's Paradise if they hadn't heard the Weird Al version first, because they aren't rap fans, right? So they probably went back and were like, well, what does the original sound like? And then they all went, you know, holy shit, that really is like gut wrenching. But because when you listen to the words of it and you understand what he's saying, it kind of tears your heart out.
There's not a single swear word in that song.
No.
It doesn't objectify women. It doesn't glorify gang violence. If anything, it denounces gang violence.
Gang violence, exactly. And it's one of those things that, like, that's how I found that song. And the first time I heard it, it made me cry, because I thought, you know, people are really trapped. And because that's what hit me from that, was that there are people that are trapped. They don't want to live like that, and they do because they don't have a way out of it. Or they don't know they have a way out of it, or they don't feel like they have a way out of it. And so that, like, he spoke to people that he probably never would have reached. You know, if he just stood on a street corner somewhere and yelled about it, or, you know, went on a talk show and talked about it and said a thing for 2 minutes, you know, nobody would listen. But making it into a piece of music and then, you know, getting parodied, that made a big difference. And it really, that's probably the thing that I will remember about him the most. Mm-hmm. Was that he reached out with that and said, hey, there's a bunch of young men trapped in this horrible lifestyle that is terrifying and demoralizing and dehumanizing, and they can't get out.
Unlike the Amish in the Amish Paradise.
Well, yeah, you can choose not to be Amish. And
yeah,
they get
you
it.
go on Rumspringa, is what they call it, and you get to see the world. And if you decide that's something you want to do, you can go do that.
Yep.
But nowadays, the Amish are going, yeah, we had it right, bitch. The Industrial Revolution and its consequences.
Yeah, but
what's their biggest problem? They tend to have more than like 5 fingers on one hand.
Yeah.
I'll take that over cancer and microplastics.
I do remember Weird Al being interviewed about that and saying, you know, man, I really would not have done that if I thought he was going to be upset about it. So I know he apologized for it, and then he apologized publicly for it too, which I thought, you know, was also something that you don't see very many women say, man, I screwed up big time, you know, and then going on and saying in public, man, I screwed up big time, right? That was really my fault and my bad. And so that was something else, like, because Weird Al's one of those people. I went through profound depression in high school and college, and part of my personal course of treatment was things like music by Weird Al and Ray Stevens and stuff like that. So it was neat to see, I guess, one of my heroes apologize to the guy for that, and that is part of what led me to listen to that song.
We really need a Weird Al for the modern age. I mean, I'm trying, guys. Sorry.
One of the funny
honestly, things... that's a pretty good comparison, because there's a lot of ways in which the things that I like about your stuff are similar to the things I like about Weird Al's stuff, and I think they come from the same place of watching other people.
One of the funny things is I don't know if you guys ever watched Sean Evans' YouTube channel, Hot Ones.
Mm-mm.
Where
I'm going to talk about this.
do you want to do it? Do you want to do it?
No, finish the write up. Finish the write up.
Okay. Well, no, I was going off on a tangent, but you can take it with that one. So the write up. There we go. Yeah. So Coolio, unfortunately, passed away last Wednesday. Coolio was reportedly staying with a friend in Los Angeles, California, when he got up to use the restroom and never returned. His friend, growing concerned, attempted to call out to him but received no response. Entering the bathroom, he discovered Coolio unresponsive and on the floor. Paramedics were called around 4 p.m. and resuscitation efforts were performed, but within the hour, Coolio was pronounced dead, unfortunately. While a police investigation has been opened into his cause of death, preliminary reports suggests he died of a heart attack. No foul play or anything like that.
A heart attack.
Boy, there sure seemed to be a big rash of those going around. Just in the last 2 years, for some reason.
I swear to God, if this is another one that fucking took.
Yeah.
Gone too far this time. Damn it. Coolio survived by his ex-wife, Josefa Salinas, and his 6 children.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say what we're all thinking. We've seen it before. It's already taken more lives than anything ever should. This is what happens when you indulge in too much hot sauce. So, as Mike said, you'll have seen Coolio's appearance on Hot Ones on the First Feast channel. He drowned that chicken wing in the last dab.
Dude.
And there was more sauce. There was more sauce than chicken wing. And
go watch that episode if you haven't. It's great.
Clearly killed by the dab.
That's the stuff that's like 1,000,000 Scoville. So we all watched that clip through our trembling fingers, thinking, "Dude, you're gonna die. You are going to die. If you don't have a tank of pure oxygen handy that you can huff on for the next week, that's GG, my dude. That's game over." You are
reportedly face down in the green room couch for the next 3 hours.
You would be. Yeah, and I'm sure you are used to it, Coolio. I'm sure you eat that much hot sauce all the time, and that's why you're gonna die. There's only so much damage you can do to the heat receptors in the center of your skull before your brain just goes, "Yeah, no, this nigga's dead." There's no point in keeping the lights on anymore. This is a smoldering ember of a human being. We thought this would happen suddenly by a bullet coming in from the back of the head, but no. Much the same thing happened because he shoved a concentration of 1 billion chili peppers into the front of his head. If he wants to burn himself to death, let's just throw in the towel and let him do it.
That would be the real COVID vaccine right there. I don't think COVID could survive that.
As somebody who whines about the heat from jalapenos, I really have nothing to say here. I'm sorry if I'm such a wimp when it comes to hot stuff.
Yeah,
but I can eat wasabi. I just can't eat capsaicin.
Yeah,
wasabi's cool because it's really hot, then it leaves.
Yeah, it's a nasal heat. It doesn't last long. But we're joking, of course. He didn't die from hot sauce. It was clearly the jabs.
Yeah. It was funny though, very morose, but very funny at the same time. When reports of him dying were coming out, that one clip was circulating with Gordon Ramsay, and Ramsay was getting to the last end of the scale. He's like, "Oh fuck me, has anyone ever died doing this?" And Sean Evans goes, "Well, we haven't heard from Coolio in a while."
Oh jeez.
Yeah. One last thing about the episode of Hot Ones is you talk about Yankovic apologizing, and it's funny, in that episode of Hot Ones it went full circle. I got the quote right here, and he says, in hindsight, it was really stupid of me to say something about Yankovic doing a parody of Gangsta's Paradise. I mean, he did Michael Jackson, he did Prince, people that are definitely more talented than I am. I think Prince did say something, but he wasn't really vocal about it like I was, and it just made me look dumb. It was one of the dumbest things I've done in my life, and I'm willing to admit I did something stupid.
All right. Well, that's nice.
So they both have that quality. That's beautiful.
They should have gotten together and done something, man. That would have been the greatest note to go out on.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
Well, he didn't see this coming. You know,
You rarely
so
do, man. You rarely do.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're paying attention to reports and and you're
there's
more careful about what you put in your body. But yeah, I mean, that aside, and I mean no disrespect. I hope we learn more about this. I don't know if we will, because like most of these other similar incidents, let's just say, there usually isn't a lot of discussion or info that comes out.
Well, so. to my knowledge, he wasn't a guy who had a ton of health problems.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't a guy who was a big time drug user. Mm-hmm. The only thing I found is like he had asthma as a child growing up, and that was pretty rough on him. That was sadly one of the reasons I guess he gave quite a bit to a lot of these climate change initiatives, because they were all wrapped up in the asthma foundation initiatives, and he just wanted to help kids with asthma. And I guess you got to pay the piper to the climate change folks if you want to make that happen.
Yep.
And see, asthma is it's actually mostly an inflammatory condition. And if you have an inflammatory condition, according to the reports that have associated the jab with the heart attack, you have a worse chance than if you're not somebody who's susceptible. I guess that fits my family's experience. All of us that have had arrhythmia afterward had inflammatory conditions. And my dad's heart condition was inflammatory. Well, it wasn't plaque blockage, it was inflammation.
Does anyone else have any thoughts on this Coolio story?
It was the jabs.
Yeah.
We're allowed to say that on YouTube now. Fuck it. Jabs.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it.
I think
it's
you're right.
a strong reason to suspect it. Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know if I don't know if he got
even
them.
more heartbreaking. Like, because he wasn't old. He was not old.
He's like in his 50s, right?
Like, I'm 50.
Yeah, he's 59 when he passed. But no, I don't think it's his age. I would like to know if he got the jab. That's what I'd like to know.
I looked around a little bit. I didn't do like a really hardcore deep dive, but I couldn't find anything saying
sort of
yes.
Like either
but
way.
He didn't seem like the guy who would, be there flaunting it on social media. He's in his fucking late 50s. He don't got time for social media.
Right.
He'd occasionally do like those really boomer Facebook, YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
But that was like it,
Well, I mean, yeah, and again, like he doesn't seems to be someone who's aware that he's had his time, and now he's just like fortunate enough, or was fortunate, to still have some celebrity, but doesn't like want a virtue signal or anything. In fact, I bet a lot of old school rappers don't do that, because I think that, I don't know, it just doesn't seem in keeping with them.
Nah.
Not male rappers, at least. But yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in knowing, but I wouldn't be surprised. So I guess we'll see. I don't think we're gonna learn anything else about this, but I hope we do. And I hope that his family is, at peace with this, and R.I.P. R.I.P. Coolio. So I got a super chat from Senior Sticks, and he says, for $2, someone from HBR should do Hot Ones. I could probably do it.
I was about to say, who would he get? Hannah is automatically off the table.
No,
I'm completely off the table. Unless they go with, what's it called? Wasabi is a particular type of root, and I can't think of the stupid term for the root now.
Yeah.
But horseradish. If they went with horseradish, I'd be fine. I can do horseradish and ginger, just not capsaicin.
That's a different kind of spicy, I think.
Yeah, capsaicin is acidic.
It's like wasabi. It's a different kind. But I think
Yeah.
that for this thing, it's like, you know, the chicken wing spicy, so it's probably more like peppery. What were you gonna say, Mike?
Well, you know, we can purchase the same hot sauces. I know we've all got webcams. You know, we make it nice and unique. I don't know. I think Buffalo Wild Wings is everywhere at this point. You know, we go get like a sixer of unflavored wings and we do it live and in person and maybe raise some money.
I just want
to. Nobody should watch me eat wasabi because, you know, it doesn't have to be, the food doesn't have to be messy for me to need a whole roll of paper towels. Horseradish irritates your mucous membranes.
You're gonna look like someone kicked an aloe vera.
I just want to skip straight to Da Bomb because Da Bomb is the one that fucks everyone up.
You gotta build up to that, man.
I know, but I just want to see what it's like.
I guess we can all like find out, but yeah, I'm willing to try it. I've had very spicy food before, and usually I can get through it, but I don't know. This might be on a whole other level. All right. I'm just counting on my hot-blooded Latino heritage to protect me, which I think
and apparently one's ordinary British palate doesn't prepare you for such things, and that sounds like a challenge to me.
Yeah. All right. So let us know what you guys think about this story in the comments, and let me move on to the final story. We are talking about Stacey Abrams. So, oh my God, this woman. You might remember Stacey Abrams, who used to be, I think, like a governor of Georgia or some politician in Georgia.
Oh, she ran for governor.
Yeah.
She didn't get elected, and then she claimed that the vote was stolen from her.
Right. So
everything that the Democrats are accusing Trump of treason for, Stacey Abrams did in regard to the Georgia election.
Yeah.
It's just that, you know, because she's a Democrat, it's okay.
Yeah, of course.
It's good to know that in the future she'll be the governor of the galaxy.
Yeah, right. She's also the governor of the universe or whatever it is.
Although,
in Star Trek.
It's still not as pathetic as Al Gore running around starting speeches by introducing himself. Hi, I'm Al Gore. I used to be the next president of the United States. It's like, shut the fuck up, dude. You lost.
Does he still do that? I mean,
I think he did that for a while. I don't think, I can't imagine he's still doing that because I can't imagine anybody would pay to hear Al Gore speak now.
Yeah.
Doesn't he also like
I might pay to not hear him speak.
Well,
the coldest days of the year?
Yes.
Yeah, he still flies around in his private jet to tell us about climate change. But all right, Stacey Abrams, she was essentially a warrior against what did she call it? Like voter ID laws, and that was like her hill to die on. Because she assumed that black folks don't know how to get ID, especially the ones in Georgia. Well, she's changed her stance. She's not doing the voter ID thing right now because she's found something more important. So Georgia Democratic gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams, who supports no limits on abortion, has recently claimed that, quote, there is no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks, end quote, gestation. There is no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks, Abrams proclaimed in a now viral video. And this is the part that I think is worth talking about. It is a manufactured sound designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body.
Wow.
So men have done this so that they can control women's bodies. Did you guys hear about that in the last patriarchy meeting? Dr. Nicole Safier, a radiologist who appeared on Fox News, called Abrams' claims untrue. Yeah, well, that's a nice way of putting it. Stating, quote, I'm going to just deliver the truth and point out it is a complete lie. So at about 3 weeks after gestation, after conception, the cells of the heart start to rhythmically contract. So really, the heart starts beating at 3 weeks, Safier said. Yes, you can start seeing the heartbeat at 5 to 6 weeks after conception on the ultrasound, but that's only because it's so small and because all of the other structures are in the way with the pelvis. She continued, but that heart is contracting very easily early on.
Hey, Stacy. Are you a biologist? let's just skip over the claim you made about embryonic heartbeats. I'm sure you have every right to make that assertion, even as a layman. Sure, whatever. But you just claimed that the embryonic heartbeats in question are, quote, designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body. That's a woman's body. What question am I about to ask you, Stacy? It's a question that you cannot answer, given that you are not a biologist. What is a woman, Stacy? That's surely your first port of call when it comes to these things. One would think your second or joint first port of call would be what is a man, but evidently nobody gives a shit about what a man is. Just shut up and serve, you filthy misogynist. But alas, there is still some science to address here. In before science is racist, by the way. Yes, in some contexts, we have to just trust the science and obey the science without question, as and when we say so. But in other contexts, we have to ignore the science because it displeases us. Therefore, it is bad word, blah, blah, bullshit, horseshit, lies. We're not even trying anymore, people. Science is just our plaything. Logic is our plaything. Morality is our plaything. Language, ethics, cognition, concepts in general. These things are all just toys to us. Toys that can be the good guy or the bad guy, depending on which game we happen to be playing at the time. Needless to say, anyone who points out what we're doing is just committing a whataboutism. And this seems like total chaos with no rhyme or reason or common direction. But Stacey Abrams has revealed what the common direction is. Women are victims and it's men's fault. That's what everything comes down to. That's the Rome to which all roads lead. The only game they will never play with their toys is women have agency and men are not necessarily to blame. That wasn't enough, so it bled out into racism. That wasn't enough either, so it bled out into homophobia. That wasn't enough either, so it bled out into transphobia. That wasn't enough either, so it bled out into, hey, maybe nonces are okay too. You are here. It's
Can it just bleed out finally?
Hopefully.
Maybe.
It's hard to imagine where the hell it's going to go next before it does bleed out, but whatever it is, they will go there because they can. Humans are just animals at the end of the day, and animals will do whatever they can get away with. If you let them get away with anything, there is no level of evil to which they will not sink. I'm past the point at which I've concluded that democracy was a mistake. I'm now starting to wonder if language was a mistake. Written language, spoken language, anything beyond the basics of visual and mechanical interaction with, the real world. If these are the depths to which human beings will dive by abusing language in this way, and we can't even get together and push back on it by simply recognizing what these people are doing, then maybe we really should just return to monkey. At least some people should. Go back to the trees, Stacy. You don't belong here.
No. I want the trees. She has to get into the ocean.
But yeah, go ahead and clip what I just said. Play it out of context. I don't care. I fucking mean it, cunt.
The sad thing is it's not just her, though. And I mean, dear abortion advocates, you really have got to stop using the old canard of controlling women's bodies. Not because of trans issues, but think about what you're saying. All right, men have for eons been able to control things. They've taken extraordinary steps to be able to control things. Like we have a history in the human race of men controlling the whether the weather can get to you by building shelters, right? By strengthening those shelters, by figuring out how to make those shelters withstand Category 4 hurricanes in some instances, right? And when there's destruction after a hurricane, it's always the buildings that are older than the time period when that was figured out, because everything that's made afterwards, it uses that new technology. And in terms of medical technology, like, men have figured out how to control all kinds of things about the human body. If they get enough warning, they can control whether or not a heart attack happens. They can prevent it. They can put in a stent if you have a heart attack and you have some damage. They can do bypasses. There's all stuff that was initiatives that men were involved in, that men took the initiative to make these things happen, to do the research, to do the studying, the science that it took to figure it out and make it a reality. If men wanted to control women's fertility, they would have found a way to take our uteruses away upon reaching adolescence and not give them back until they wanted us to have babies. But they didn't, because that's not what they do. If they wanted to control women, if they wanted to enslave us, if they wanted to subdue us and subjugate us, we would be subjugated. There would be no feminism. There would be no abortion. There would be no unwanted pregnancy. If men decided to put their foot down, we could do nothing about it. Right? But they haven't. So every time you use an allegation against men as a population as your argument, you sound stupid. You're not persuasive. You sound like a fucking moron. Like, why are you doing that? If you want this procedure to maintain legal, make good legal arguments for it. If you want this procedure to maintain its availability, if you want our society to say, well, even though we don't think you should do that, you can. Don't make stupid arguments like that. Don't play victim. Don't whine. Don't sound like an idiot. Find something in law that gives you a reason why it should still be legal. You know, or shut the fuck up. If you can't find that, if you can't come up with a real, genuine, moral, ethical, legal argument for this, then it must be wrong. But for crying out loud, why do something so useless as to accuse men? What do you want them to make it true? Because they could. I don't think you'd like it, but they could.
Now, we sit here and we laugh at the silly woman who says the funny things that make no sense. But in our uproarious laughter, there's always something happening behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And if we peel away the curtain on this one, we will find that in the same time frame as this clip went viral, was shared around of Stacey Abrams making a fool out of herself, Planned Parenthood has very quietly updated their website. Under the section of what happens during week 5 to 6 on the growth of a baby, where it used to read, a very basic beating heart and circulatory system develop, now reads, a part of the embryo starts to show cardiac activity.
Oh.
It sounds like a heartbeat on an ultrasound, but it's not a fully formed heart. It's the earliest stage of the developing heart.
Well,
Jeez.
isn't that convenient?
And a fetus is just the earliest stage of a human being. Kill it.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you know you're a pathetic human being when Planned Parenthood has to lie to or at least bend the truth, which is still lying, to clean up after your sorry shit.
I wonder if that's what Planned Parenthood was doing. I mean, the timing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
timing is a little hard to ignore, but
Send out the buffoon to make all the noise to have everyone point at and go, oh, she's just big silly lady who say funny thing. And while that's happening, just change a few things around, open
Change
up
the
the
language.
style
Well,
sheet.
they didn't even have to be direct about it, okay? They send out these emails that just absolutely panic monger. They make it sound like women are residents of a prison camp Earth that is guarded by men, and everything that we know about biology is a lie, and like it's really bad. It's like hell comes to estrogen town. But in any case,
I'd watch that movie.
yeah, only if it had Roddy Piper in it. But in any case, it's sad and pathetic. But when they do it, they get women like her stirred up, and they start talking, and you start seeing a wave of stuff go out on social media about it, and inevitably somebody will go viral with it, or somebody famous will say it, and everybody will hear it, and then the discussion will be a big distraction, and they can change it on their website. And they're doing it because there's all these laws being passed, these heartbeat laws being passed, which, again, to the people who are pro-abortion, you fucking idiots, it's your fault these laws are getting passed, right? I have no sympathy for you. I'm not a big government person. I don't think that the law is the way abortion should be handled and dealt with. I think that it's better if our young women are educated fully on what goes on with their bodies, and they figure out how much better off they are if they prevent pregnancy in the first place than if they go through an abortion. But since y'all don't want to do that, this is where we are. And since y'all like to antagonize the religious right, and antagonize in particular the pro-life religious right, and you make false allegations against them as well, this is where we are. You asked for it, and you got it. Now we have heartbeat laws. If you want to keep this shit up, I predict that the religious right, in particular the pro-life religious right, is probably going to go for the full Monty. You will see us go back to a situation where elective abortion is illegal. And since you guys have been lying about that as well, pretending that medical abortion, therapeutic abortion, was illegal at the same time when it wasn't, that's probably where we're going to end up. If you could make honest arguments, that might not happen. But, my hopes and my standards are not on the same level.
yeah. Does anyone else have any thoughts on this? All right, so I guess that's the last story. I'd like to know what you guys think about this in the comments. Give us your thoughts. We know that Stacey Abrams is not like a genius. She basically says what she thinks is going to get her clout. And the abortion issue is a major one. They're even talking about like essentially erasing Movember this year and instead focusing on Rovember. But I'll probably report on that like in a future show. But yeah, I mean, like, women's bodies are in danger, so let's just throw everything else out of the way and focus on that. And that's basically, I mean, look, it's just activism. It's kind of bullshit, but nonetheless, it is taking much needed attention away from men's issues as always. So, with that said,
it is pretty shitty because the organization that founded and reminds everybody about Movember every year actually contributes to a whole bunch of men's health initiatives,
Yeah.
including initiatives for testicular and
Yes.
prostate cancer research and anti-suicide initiatives. So
Yeah.
basically, if they go for this Rovember thing, it's basically erasing an initiative that makes an aim at preventing men's deaths, men's untimely deaths,
Yeah.
and erasing it so that they can replace it with an initiative designed to bring about the untimely deaths of both sexes before birth. Congratulations on that massive step backward in the field of humanity and ethics.
Yeah. I suspect that the organizations that are focused on men's health are going to keep trying to do it, but I also suspect that it will just get less coverage this month. Once the midterms are done, so thank God for small blessings. The midterms are early in the month. We'll probably be able to move on, and I suspect that the midterms are not going to play out with the pro-abortion activists as well as they're hoping. So once that's done, they'll throw tantrums, it's fine, and then we'll go ahead and get on with the Movember stuff. But anyway, I do gotta go because I gotta head into the patron show, and
we got one more super chow.
Oh yes, I did. I saw that. So Michael Emmerich Windberg gives us $5 and says, "It's funny that people always claim false allegations hurt the women who've actually been sexually assaulted somewhere by someone, but the men who have been directly assaulted by the false accuser in front of them, that goes by ignored. Men get falsely accused, and the only victims of them are women at the hands of men. Business as usual."
We have a super chat too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So let me just make a note of that. Thank you for the super chow. And then we got a super chat from Zeranx for $5, and he says, "This topic reminded me, Hannah, you said the pill led to the increase of fetus deletions. I can't find anything talking about that. Please help."
So I don't think that quote is accurate. I remember a discussion where it was said that the pill led to a decrease in fetus deletions, and then somebody else said that it led to an increase. And it's possible. I've said it's possible. And part of the reason is women are more likely to mess up birth control if they're using the pill than they are with other forms, because there are more things that can go wrong with it. But then they trust it anyway. And it gives them a way to lie to a guy and say, "Oh yes, I have used birth control. I'm on the pill," when they're not. And then the other thing is, when you go off the pill, if you don't know what you're doing, you don't realize that you just told your body it's time to start trying to get pregnant again. So you go off the pill and then you have sex, you're more fertile than you were before you took the pill in the first place. But again, it's possible that and the increase in the availability of birth control may have also created an increase in the practice of extramarital, whether it's premarital or otherwise, but extramarital sex, and an increase in extramarital sex where there are mistakes with birth control, and women who don't necessarily care if they kill their children, then there's going to be an increase in abortion as well. So that's basically it.
Good point. And let me see. I don't have any super chats, but I think we're good. All right, I'm going to head into the patron-only show, and we're going to look at this article about incels and how this one guy who supposedly infiltrated their forums has essentially been terrified by the incel space. Like, it's just it's like a Lovecraftian monster. It's driving him insane. So we're going to find out just how dark this rabbit hole is. So please consider joining us on the patron only show. And to do that, you have to go to feedthebadger.com and support us monthly. And then you'll get a invitation to join the Discord where you'll be able to watch all the additional content. And you'll also be able to participate in all of the crazy activities that are usually going on in the Discord. So, all right. With all that said, thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News. If you like this video, please smash like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications so you know when our streams go live, and leave us a comment. And then most importantly, please share this video, because sharing is caring and it is the best way to help us grow. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.